The word of the day is Hamartia. Now, if you're watching this and you are absent from class, I know this is kind of silly, but I actually want you to try and say it out loud a couple of times. Most people have never heard of this word before. I call it one of my big girl words. One of those literary terms that's just really kind of fancy, right? That not a lot of people know about, but that's a really interesting idea. But because it's lesser known, it's not something your mouth would be used to saying. So here, I'll say it with you. Let's say it 3 times. Ready? Hamartia. 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 I kind of like it's kind of a bouncy word, right? So a hamartia is when a character has a fatal flaw, and that flaw leads to some major conflict or even their downfall. So you'll see the picture is of Achilles, which is one of the Greek demigods, and Achilles has an interesting hamartia. The story goes, the myth goes, that his mother she wanted to make him immortal. And so people knew that if you bathed in the river Styx, which is the river in Greek mythology that guards the underworld, that would make you immortal. But he was a baby, so she had to hold him by his heel while she dipped him in the river Styx. And then in the future, that led to his ultimate downfall. So because the heel was the one thing that didn't get dipped, that was his hamartia, his fatal flaw, and that's where he eventually, I think he got speared, if I remember correctly, and that's how he got killed. That was the one place that he was mortal. So hamartias, though, aren't just ancient, although that's where they started. There's lots of other examples, right? Like, for example, Elsa in Frozen, her kind of fatal flaw, her hamartia, that leads to so much of the conflict is her fear of her own powers, that she can't control them because she doesn't know how to accept them. In Harry Potter, Voldemort, you could argue that his hamartia is his fear of the prophecy that Harry would be his ultimate downfall. But that's the problem, is that he was so afraid of that he couldn't get over it, and then it ended up coming true. A really old example is an old king named Oedipus, and his hamartia is another Greek word that we've kind of adopted. It's called hubris, which means excessive pride. There's a famous Shakespearean play called Hamlet, and in that one, the fatal flaw is that he just cannot decide what to do. Even someone like Batman has a hamartia you could probably argue that it's a couple of different things, but for me, it's a lot of the problem is that he won't let other people help him. So there's some extra examples here. Being too ambitious, or wanting all the control, tyranny, or being really stubborn. My mom always said I was a really stubborn kid. I've had to work on that as an adult, right? But that led to a lot of problems for me when I was a kid, so you could have argued that was my hamartia. And that's one of the reasons, if you look at the second sentence, one of the reasons that you might want to think about giving your protagonist or your main character a hamartia is that it's relatable, that most people have a hamartia of their own or a flaw, and that then leads to other problems. And so seeing that in our literature makes the characters more relatable because they're flawed just like we are. I always have a problem with characters who are too perfect. It's hard for me to relate to that because I'm a very imperfect person. So something to think about for creative writers, including a hamartia. There you go.